Hey, welcome to the 938 podcast. My name is Craig Stevenson, and I'm an associate mission director here at the BBFI Mission Office in Springfield, Missouri. And glad you're tuning in today. We got an incredible show for you today and conversation. We have Jon Konnerup, our mission director, with us today.
Yes.
And obviously, it's always great to have you on. And I know you have a lot of things going on all over the world all the time, but thankful for you being able to jump on and be a part of this today.
Yeah, even this morning I've basically been all around the world.
Yeah, all around the world.
Mostly through emails and communications,
Yeah.
but so.
Yeah. It's amazing how small our world is in relationship to communication, which and can go all over the place all the time.
Well, you get texts every day, you get WhatsApp messages, you get messenger video talks, and you get all kinds of fun stuff that it's amazing really to communicate with Ethiopia, Philippines, and parts of Latin America and all that just in the same morning.
Oh yeah, and all that comes through on a such a short-term basis, for you and everything that you do, and so we're thankful for that. We're thankful for what you're doing here in the office and leading us in BBFI missions, and I just know our staff is thankful for that. And I am as well. So it's, again, great to have you on here today. So let's talk about the big project for this year, Project 938, right? So we started planning for this last summer, basically, and then the team worked on this through the fall to get it ready. We released it back the beginning of the year, this whole idea, taking the 938 challenge, and really ramping that up to a really large project for our network. We released information in May. Just kind of give us an overview a little bit about kind of where we've been with this and why this was so important for us to be involved with.
Sure. 3 years ago, I began to think even more and more and more about we need more missionaries. Our missionary force is getting older. Things around the world are getting harder, and it's people are struggling with different things, and so I thought we've got to have more missionaries, and it's not because the BBFI wants to have numbers.
Yeah,
it's because people around the world need Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's right.
They're like sheep without a shepherd, it says in Matthew 9, and they're fainting, they're scattered abroad. There's so many things going on in our world that people are struggling with. They're looking for answers, and so I've always read Matthew 9:38, and I've prayed, preached that message. I've prayed that verse, but it really just took hold 3 years ago, and I said, I've got to come up with this 938 challenge.
Yeah.
And playing off of Matthew 9:38. And so began to encourage people to pray more, and I thought at the time that maybe one of the reasons why we don't have as many surrendering and going and answering the call is because maybe we're not praying to the Lord of the harvest for more laborers.
Yeah.
And so that's where that challenge began. I shared that in Costa Rica. I shared that in Thailand. I've shared that in Taiwan, Kenya, other places. So around the world right now, we have people who are praying the 938 challenge. And I encourage them to set their alarms at 9:38 in the morning or 9:38 at night.
Yeah.
And I get emails from time to time, messages of people saying, hey, I just want you to know I'm still praying at 9:38 in the morning, or I'm doing it at night. I was with a couple of pastors traveling through Hong Kong a couple years ago now. And at 9:38 in the morning, my alarm went off right there in the terminal of this huge airport in Hong Kong. And the three of us just stopped right there in the middle of all these crowds and prayed right there for more laborers. And so that was the idea and the challenge. And then as we talked here in the office, we came up with this project. Let's make it a project. Let's get our churches involved.
Yeah.
And the people of our churches to pray more. And we're praying and asking God to answer our request for more laborers. And I know God's still calling.
Yeah.
But are people answering that call? That's what we're praying for.
Yeah, and that's a good question. Are people answering the call? There's a lot of things going on in the world right now, right? A lot of people are afraid to travel. We hear that on a regular basis. There's so much uncertainty in different regions that it seems like people are kind of more, let's just kind of see where things go, kind of.
Right.
But it's in the middle of these times that we need more people to say, okay, because of all these things,
right?
God, here I am. So
well, people are searching, and they're scared. They're afraid of death. and they're getting online searching.
Yeah.
What happens when I die?
Yeah.
What happens if I get COVID and I die, or anything like that? And so it'd be great to have people there in those regions that they can come to maybe face to face and ask those questions.
Well, and you bring up a good point, because we've seen, you talk about COVID, and we all know about shutdowns. We all know about all the issues surrounding COVID-19 stateside and around the world, but ministry hasn't stopped around the world either. No. There have been some pretty incredible stories of how God has used things like the internet or a megaphone in a community for the gospel to go out. And we've seen a lot of people saved, even though we've had this pandemic going on. And so it's been great to see that. Are there any stories that just really stick out to you that you've heard over the course of this past year that, hey, this is how God can use us even in times of a pandemic like this to get the word out?
Sure. Yeah, and this didn't surprise God, so
sure,
his mission still goes on.
Yeah.
We've just got to be faithful to figure out ways to keep that mission going. And there are adjustments. Missionaries are adjusting. They're not able to have meetings together with their people, so they've gone on Zoom. They've gone online. And some missionaries have said in their community, people who didn't come to church before would not have stepped into their building. Yeah. Have been listening to them speak online and have communicated and said, wow, the message you're sharing is what I need. They didn't think they needed it previously, but now they do. Now. And they're hearing it online. Yeah. There was a young lady, I've told this story before, but a young lady in Asia who got on the phone, in Hong Kong actually. She got online because she was afraid of death and of getting the virus. And so she got online to find out what happens when someone dies. And in her search, she came across one of our missionaries, their service online. Yeah. And she began to listen, and he was talking about salvation. He was talking about the gospel and how God provides forgiveness of sins and eternal life. Yeah. And that really intrigued her, so she stayed listening to the entire message. Afterwards, she saw the number that they mentioned at the end and called the missionary, talked to the missionary's wife. And the missionary's wife was able to lead her to the Lord right there on the telephone. And that young lady said, you know what, if it hadn't been for COVID, I would never have met Jesus Christ. Yeah. And so these are difficult times. And we, national pastors are using all kinds of means to get the gospel out in ways that they had never even thought of before. Sure. I know one African missionary in another African country. He's got a couple of mosques around, and they do their 5 times a day prayer calls out of their loudspeakers. So he said, well, we're all in lockdown. Everybody's in their homes all around me. They're doing it 5 times a day. So he took the speakers of their loud system in their church and put them in the windows. And 3 times a day he preaches. Wow. And it goes out loud across the community there. Yeah. So he's doing that. So there's
so great.
All kinds of neat ways. But parents are afraid for their kids to go as missionaries. Yeah. Countries are getting tighter on letting people come in. Yeah. But God's still able. Yeah. That's what it says in the Bible, 2 Corinthians chapter 9. God is able. Yeah. So he is able to enable any missionary to get to the field, anyone to go through the deputation process, even in COVID. Yeah. To get them into that country, to keep them there, to give them the opportunities to reach people. God's able. Yeah. We just need to be willing to do it.
Oh, and we've seen that. We've seen missionaries raise their support through this time of COVID and go to the field. We just had some go to the field not long ago. Right. Raised pretty much all their support through this process. Mm-hmm. I think about it, and I think of all of human history, all the people that have tried to snuff out Christianity, right? All the different persecution and all nothing has stopped the message of the gospel going out. Right. COVID's not going to accomplish what everything in the rest of human history has been able to stop, has not been able to stop. And so just that fact alone, knowing that God's able, God's calling, and I love those verses, Matthew 9:38, because it says, into his harvest, right? It's his harvest. He's just calling us into his work, into his harvest around the world. That brings up another question for me, and I know you and I didn't really talk a whole lot about what we were going to do with this, just general principles or general thoughts that we wanted to get across, but talk to me about the importance of the missionaries staying on the field during this time. I mean, you take a look at it. Our missionaries, in a lot of ways, have struggled. There's been a lot of challenges around the world, for them. So talk to me about, I think of the lady in Hong Kong that called a missionary lady that was there And just kind of talk about the importance. And, we've had those conversations in the past about the importance of sticking in and being there. I know not everybody can. There's a lot of things that go into that, but just some general ideas about that.
Well, anytime you have a crisis, it's tempting to want to leave for various reasons.
Yeah.
You take COVID. I mean, if you get it and you have a serious case, you might be in a country that does not have the medical facilities to take care of you and help you through.
Yeah.
So there have been some places where our missionaries had to leave because maybe they had some health issues previous that could cause some problems. And so we understand them being out of that particular area for that time.
Absolutely.
And so those things do happen. But whenever you do have a crisis, you'll have the United States government and the embassy saying, hey, all Americans need to leave, or if you want to get out, this is the last plane. I mean, we kind of see that going on in Afghanistan, which is a terrible situation there. But in the past, we've had this happen, like in Beirut and other places. So in those situations, though, where our missionaries have stayed and been there with the people, the people are the ones who come and say, you know what, you must have something I need to hear.
Yeah.
Because you stayed when all the others left.
Yeah.
I want to hear your message. Yeah. This showed me you care for me. You care for my life. You want me to know something that will impact me for eternity. So I'm glad you stayed. So in these kind of situations, when missionaries are able to stay, it means a lot to the local people.
Yeah, it really does.
It'd be kind of like a pastor here in the States if they have an issue in their city and he takes off for a couple months.
Yeah, sure.
Those people in that town are going to, hey,
what's going on? Yeah.
But when they stay and they help and they get out there, they're getting food out to people. And that's what our missionaries have been doing.
Yeah.
They've been feeding people. They've been getting supplies to people from stores to their houses. All these things give them then the opportunity to share the gospel.
Yeah, in many times in places and with people that they've never had that opportunity before. Right. And I love that. Right. And like you said, there are legitimate reasons why people need to leave and be away. But for those that can stay, just the impact that can make, that's really cool. Go back and think about 938. The whole idea is God, call more missionaries. It's Jesus' prayer request to pray for more laborers. And, we walked through this process and we've put a lot of resources together.
Very much.
Take just a minute, if you don't mind, and just talk about our team at the mission office, because this has been truly a team effort.
Right.
This could not have happened with just one person or two people, but it's taken every person in our office. And I just want to give you a chance. Just talk about the team that God's really put together here.
I'm in churches often, and they always want to compliment how the mission office is doing, and they say, "Wow, John, you're doing a great job in the mission office." And I said, "Well, thank you. Yeah. However, it's not just me." Yeah. And I always tell them we have a great team, and I believe God has assembled our team here, and brought the right people. And I can tell you that every one of them don't see it as just a job; they see it as a ministry to our missionaries, ministry to our churches. And so, the associate directors, they've all had an active part. Each one has had a different part of this project that they have put things together, written items, articles, or put together Bible studies. So our associate directors, we have Jill Wolf, who is our projects manager, and she is the one that keeps all the deadlines met and keeps reminding us, hey, we got this ready to come up. We need to put this together. We have an outstanding media team. Yeah. And when you think about it, there's really only one full-time and two part-time people.
Yeah, which is incredible if you think about the number of videos that have been produced, and not just videos, but graphics and things through this process.
Yeah. At this time, we have put together 80 videos and 30 podcasts. Yeah. That's a lot just since probably March when we really started putting it all together. So they've worked very hard, and we try and set up the schedule so it spaces it all out. And that's why we have done 3 different packs or of resources. Yeah. The first one was in May when people were to register, and we introduced this whole thing. It's called the introduction packet. And the idea with each of these packets was not to give stuff so at the end everyone says, "Oh man, we're so overwhelmed with everything." Yeah. No, the idea was take that what was given in May and start showing it in your church. May and June, and showing those videos. They're short. Every Sunday you could do something. And then you got one in July, another full package of resources.
Yeah.
And that was to help you with July, August, and through September. Of using those resources to share with your church and encouraging them. And then another one's coming out in September. And that's to help with the 938 Sunday. So all this was to help lead up and build up, not just to pray on that one day, but to get everybody to start praying every day.
Every day.
And so that's what we've done. And the September pack coming out is really loaded with some good things. Oh
my goodness, I'm looking forward to this. I would say unveiling, but we've talked some in different arenas about what's coming out in September, and people have had a general sense of what that is. But can you just kind of give us an overview of what they can expect, because they still have time to register their church if they haven't registered yet. Before this gets released the 1st of September, right? So let them give our viewers today an idea of what they can expect in this final pack for 938 Sunday.
Sure. Well, the end of August, I sent out an email to all the pastors and all the churches saying the September pack is coming here pretty soon.
Yes.
And so hopefully they've seen that email. But in that packet is going to be some Bible studies, a video Bible study geared toward adults. And there'll be a little leader's guide and discussion guide for the leader. So the churches are going to get that professionally recorded and edited by our team. It's going to be really good, and it's a great challenge toward adults on praying for missions and missionaries. And then also there's going to be one geared toward the students of our churches, our young people, our college age, and you are the one who put that together. You're talking on the video, challenging them, and then there's going to be a leader's guide to help with the discussion after that. And then also my wife has put together a children's leader's guide, a lesson that they can read and teach. It's got some crafts and some ideas that they can do with the kids. And so all those things are going to be a part of it. There's even a 938 sermon outline. If the pastor's busy, they can take that outline, put there's a little bit of information with each point, but they can add to it, and it's all geared toward 938. Then there's the prayer challenge. They're going to get a video on the 938 challenge of sharing to set their alarms to pray every morning or every night or both. There's a prayer calendar that they'll be able to use for every day of the week on praying for different regions. One of the regions is the United States.
Yeah, that's right. We need more laborers here.
It's not just missionaries outside. We need more people involved in our churches.
Yeah.
We need more church planners in America.
That's right.
And we need more missionaries. So that prayer calendar covers all the regions of the world.
Yeah, well, and not only does it cover those regions in a 7-day format, but then there's a QR code on that.
Yes.
And that QR code takes people, to the video for that particular region. And so excited about how really dynamic that prayer guide is.
Right. Yeah, it's really good. And then there's going to be some videos of future missionaries. There's testimonies.
Yeah.
Future missionaries saying, "Hey, I surrendered to go. I'm in training now. Boy, I wish more young couples like us would surrender to go and join us." There's going to be from our college presidents. They give a little bit of a challenge in how their students in our Boston Baptist and BBC here in Springfield are involved in praying. In fact, just the other night, there were some students over at one of our guys in our office at their house watching a television program, and at 9:30, their alarms went off, BBC students. And they said, "Hey, we got to turn the TV off right here. Let's pray."
In the middle of the program.
Middle of the program.
Yes.
They stopped and prayed for more missionaries.
Yeah.
There's also really what I think is good. There's a couple of videos from parents of missionaries.
Yes.
Who have said, "You know what? God called our kids to go, and sure, it's hard for us to see them go to another country. Our grandkids will be over there."
Yeah, sure.
But they said this is what God wanted to do, and so we're happy for them to do it. So
good.
there's a couple of families
and those
encouraging.
Those are great videos.
There'll be some from missionaries, United States pastors, international pastors, all these kinds of videos. There'll be a global partner, which is a magazine. It's digital. They'll get a digital copy that they can send it out to all their, by their phones to all their members, or they can order the hard copies.
Yeah.
And it's just a great challenge for church members on missions and why we're doing Project 938. Then there's some action steps. Okay, after 938 Sunday, what do our churches do after that?
Yeah.
And we give them a list of ideas of things they can consider and do for that. But one of the highlights of this whole September pack is the Marjorie Browning documentary.
Yes, that's one. Just personally, we've seen this already, and it's incredible.
Yes,
the story of her life. Tell us a little bit about the documentary.
Well, in the early 2000s, Dr. Baird, our previous director, and I got to travel into the interior of Brazil. It's kind of a swampland. It's just sand everywhere.
Yeah.
And we had to ride in the back of a pickup truck 300 miles after we flew from the capital city to another city.
Wow.
Then we took a public bus to a smaller town. Then we were met with a pickup truck and rode in the back of that for 300 miles into her place.
Yeah.
And then 300 miles when we left. So very remote area. Marjorie Browning gave her life to serve the Lord.
Yeah.
And she just tells us what it's like and the importance. And she mentions, money is good to help with some things, but some things you can't get there.
That's right.
And so the most important thing is prayer.
Yeah.
And God's answered and taken care of her in ways that money could not have done, but prayer can. And she gives some really good ideas and thoughts about being a missionary.
Yeah.
We talk to people from her sending church. We talk to Mrs. Baird, who has known her for many years, and interview her. We have some of the footage from back when I went there in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
So it's come together really, really well. Yeah. And Mike Escabel, Mike has taken what we've had and really put it all together
and done a great job with that.
And it is amazing. It'll really tug at your heart.
Yeah.
And give you a clear understanding of what missionaries can go through and the importance of being behind them in prayer.
Yeah.
And then we use that as a challenge that there are people out there, there are people groups, there are tribes who are waiting for their Marjorie Browning to bring the gospel.
That's right.
She went to a place that even Brazilians wouldn't go to.
Yeah.
She answered that call to go there.
Yeah.
There are places around the world who are still waiting for the gospel.
Yeah.
Who's going to be their Marjorie Browning? Yeah. And that's what this documentary challenges us with.
Yeah, and I love that, and I can't wait. And churches can use this in a number of ways. They can show it on 9:30 Sunday. They can have a special screening of this for their church, followed by a challenge for missions. I mean, there's so many different ways. And it's one of the things with Project 938 that I really appreciated is all of these resources can be used in any church.
Yes.
And in such a wide variety of different ways that every church has a path to having a really dynamic day on October 3rd, or even if it's not October 3rd that they do 9:38 Sunday.
Yes.
They can use this as part of a mission conference or however they need to. But coming back down to this Marjorie Browning video, what hit me was here's a single lady who everyone said don't go. Mm-hmm. Everyone said don't go. I think she
even had a fatal disease diagnosed upon her, and when she was young.
Yes.
She was told, you're going to die here soon.
Yeah, and then if I remember right, her pastor even got up at that time and said, you need to stay here.
Yes.
But she knew God called her, and she went. And to see the testimony in there of the entire town coming out for her funeral. Mm-hmm. I mean, this talks about her life, but it also talks about her death and her legacy and what's happening in the years since she's passed and the blessing that she's been. And so there's so many different reasons why I mean, if you're watching today, there's so many different reasons why you need to be involved with this Project 938. And if you're a pastor and you haven't registered your church yet, I want to encourage you, project938.world is where you'll go. Get on there, register, because this pack coming out with all these resources and Bible studies and this documentary are things that you're going to want to have at your disposal for Sunday, October 3rd, for the 938 Sunday. I want to encourage you to go and do that. And so I tell you what, just this whole process has been an encouraging process in many ways, because we're getting people back around this idea of Matthew 9:38 and praying for more laborers. And so, talk to me just for a second, and we don't have a lot of time left. So just thinking about just general observations about where you hope this goes from here. What do you hope the end result of Project 938 is in our churches and among the people in our churches of the BBFI?
The initial idea was to do this for 5 years. And the reason for 5 years is it would culminate in 2025.
Yeah.
and that would be our 75th anniversary as a fellowship.
Yeah.
And so because of our attrition rate and our force getting older, we want to get more missionaries.
Yeah.
And so we thought, not only just following Jesus's request, prayer request actually, and following scripture and trying to get more missionaries sent from our churches, we thought this would be a great way to celebrate the perhaps reverse of our numbers.
Yeah.
And see more missionaries going out to
Yeah.
places that are near and far or very hard.
Yeah.
And to see that change. And so
Yeah.
in 2025, the idea was let's celebrate what we've seen happen
Yeah.
in our churches because people have prayed and people have answered that call
Yeah.
because of those prayers. And I believe that God will answer those prayers in one of two ways, maybe both ways, actually.
Yeah.
Either he'll send someone else that you
Yeah.
have prayed for as you pray for God to send someone, or he'll send you.
Yeah.
And it could be both.
Yeah.
I've met missionaries on the field in different countries who have said, I'm here because people in my church prayed for more missionaries.
Yeah.
My pastor led our church to pray for more missionaries,
Yeah.
and I happen to be one of those that surrendered to go. And so the idea then is to get as many churches as we can, not just here in the States, but around the world.
Yeah.
And we've had quite a few around the world who have registered. Now, some of them, they don't have English, and so they've got to take our resources and edit them and perhaps put it in their own languages. So that's some work. But there are churches who are doing that, and they're excited to join with us. They're not just praying for more missionaries from America.
Yeah.
They're praying that God would send missionaries from their churches around the world.
Yes.
And I think that's important. That's the Great Commission.
Yeah.
They're taking ownership of the Great Commission.
Well, and that's great perspective for those watching today, and just those in our fellowship, because we spend a lot of time talking about the number of missionaries that are American missionaries out of BBFI stateside, but there's a lot of other groups around the world that are basically connected to us. They're BBFI in all these different countries, and they're sending missionaries.
Yes.
How many missionaries are sent out of those other organizations that are still connected to us?
Sure. What we have found and through our research and out of the Philippines, out of Kenya, out of Tanzania, Costa Rica, Mexico, Brazil, Korea, Japan, but we have found that there's just under 500 missionary families from those others that
are out there,
countries that are associated with us in the BBFI, and then you take what we have sent. So that's a wonderful thing, and their numbers are expanding and growing, and so we're excited about that.
Well, and when you take everything that's going on inside the U.S. and you add that to what's going on outside the U.S., because not only do we have those missionaries, but we have over 20,000 churches outside the U.S.
Yes.
And when you add all of that together, and then all of these churches have the opportunity to now buy into Project 938, and it's not even buying into some random project. It's basically just committing to pray the prayer request that Jesus gave us to pray for more laborers. Then we're just praying that God will use that collective effort to call more, again, like you said earlier, church planners, people to work in our churches, but also missionaries to go in other parts of the world to take the gospel. And so
we're excited because almost 1,000 have been registered for this Project 938.
Yeah.
And we're hoping next year that it'll be even more churches get involved. And that's churches internationally and in the United States. Some haven't registered yet. Some are getting ready to. Some have forgot, but they're going to do it. But we just want to see people join in on this. This Project 938 and praying for more missionaries, everyone can do.
Sure.
Even children.
Yeah.
I've heard of children who are
Everyone can.
praying for more missionaries. They see little videos of our missionary kids, and they're saying, we want to see more missionaries. So kids in our churches in America are praying for more missionaries. So everyone can do this.
Yes, and that's the beauty of this. Everybody can do it. Everybody can pray the prayer of God, call more laborers. And the question is, are you willing, if you're watching today, are you willing to pray that prayer? Are you willing to pray that prayer and follow through on the prayer request from Jesus? And if so, are you willing to go if God calls you? Because that's another aspect of that. And we talked about that a little while ago. But if God calls you and says, hey, I want you to be a missionary, are you willing to say yes to that call? Our prayer is that we'll have a lot of people through this process say yes, and we'll see more people come, be missionaries through the BBFI. And then that only leads to people going around the world and more people hearing about Jesus, and that's the goal. So, as we wrap up, do you have any last thoughts or anything else you'd like to say?
The last thing I would say is, Lord of the harvest, please send more laborers.
Yes, and there you have it. That's it. So, hey, if you haven't registered yet, go to project938.world and register your church. And again, the last pack, the September pack, is coming out the first week of September. You don't want to miss that. So get in and register before then, and then you'll have access to all these resources. You won't just get what was sent in September, but you'll also get all the other resources that have been sent out. And you will want to have access to those as you make your way through to 938 Sunday on Sunday, October 3rd of 2021. Hey, thanks for being here today. Thanks for being a part of the 938 podcast. And if you haven't done it yet, hit like and subscribe on this video. Share this everywhere that you have a presence on social media, and we would greatly appreciate that. It's great to have you today. And looking forward to how God uses this entire process as we make our way through the rest of Project 938. We will see you next week right here back on the 938 podcast.